Mad World. Coach Sess here. I want to walk backwards to last weekend, July 13th. The show was Fight For It number 7. I want to give a quick review. Overall, I ranked the show 8.5, but let me tell you why. So some of the good points for the show was the broadcast booth was Trevor Hayes and Tony Loco Soto. Trevor's a good Muay Thai coach in the area, and Tony definitely a coach and a fighter. And it's always good from my perspective to have, guys who are involved in the scene commentating on what the guys in the cage and the ring are doing. The stream overall, the internet stream was pretty darn good compared to previous streams and other streams from other promotions. So I thought that was pretty good. They had some really good teams that I refer to as 5-star teams, and I'll break that down later. The promotion people, personnel, Marcelo, Leslie, and Jonathan, pretty open and friendly. Another strong point about the show is they had a lot of combat sports represented. They had boxing, they had kickboxing, they had some jiu-jitsu matches, and of course they had MMA. So pretty much I was only there for the MMA portion. So I only really got to see the MMA portion of the show. But from what I saw on the stream, some of the kickboxing matches and the boxing matches looked pretty competitive, pretty darn good. So what I didn't like about the show, some of these things, the promotion could not handle themselves because it wasn't their fault. But it did happen. It did influence me in terms of, how I rated them. Basically, the AC went out and it was very hot. Now, the heat itself wasn't the problem. The problem came when you had to open up doors and provide fans. Now, that's a lot better than passing out. But the problem is now you have a lot of people moving in and out around the facility, and they're able to access the area where the fighters were. And in some cases, people were coming to the door saying, "Hey, can you get that guy for me?" And then people going outside the door or just standing outside the door smoking cigarettes. That couldn't be helped because, like I said, you'd rather have that than fighters passing out. Another aspect of the show that caught my attention was how long it went, but what made up for it was the 5-star teams. Another thing, the commission was tougher than normal. Normally, the commissions usually, they usually stress the fighters. Don't do this. Can't put that in your bucket. Make sure you got a mouthpiece. Make sure you got a cup. They're usually dogging the fighters a lot, but this time they were really on everybody in the dressing room. If you were a fighter or a coach, you couldn't leave the area without running the risk of losing your fight. If you needed to go to the restroom, you had to wait until there was a group or an official who led you out. And there were a lot of people there because there were so many fights. But they had a cage and they had a ring set up to accommodate the boxers and the kickboxers for the ring, with the ring, and the cage for the jiu-jitsu and the MMA. Well, the jury's still out. I'm not sure if I like it or dislike it because I have to be more of a fan, more so than a coach. So I've got to go to one of these shows and observe this for myself as a fan and not as a coach who's busy. So the jury's still out when it comes to that dual enclosure. Earlier, I mentioned 5-star teams, and this is what really made it a 9 for me. If I go as high as a 9, it's a 9. But right now, I got it at an 8.5, and I can reconsider. This is all fun. What the 5-star teams that I'm talking about, teams like GMO, Elevate, TFCT, Highest Stand, Team Rock Charlotte, Brunson's MMA, Matrix MMA, Rock Bottom Athletics. These are 5-star teams, not because they rank in any certain order, but because they usually meet 5 criteria. And number one is they fight in multiple formats. Like for instance, you take Matrix MMA, they do MMA and they do boxing. And then you fight frequently on the local scene. Most of these teams I just named, I can catch them at one or more shows throughout the year. Multiple fighters fighting on different shows. And that's another criteria, that you have to have more than just one fighter bringing all the attention to the gym. They fight outside of the state. Right now, Team Jimmo is really doing that. They've got guys in Bellator, UFC, and as well as the local scene. And they're fighting definitely multiple formats in kickboxing as well as MMA. And another criteria is you have to have a good performance or performances over other 5-star teams. That overall the show was 8.5, and you saw some of the newer generation freshmen of professional fighters getting ready to come out. So a lot of new names and a lot of good names on the scene. JJ Brantley, Chris Hurd trains out of Brunson's MMA. Dylan Mason trains under Chris Clodfelter. Probably the shining star of the bunch is Brian Pooh Bear Battle. Impa Kasagani and Brian Battle, they're doing a lot for that 85 division. Elias Briley. Elias Briley is going to be another shining star in that freshman class of pros in 2019. Domo Brewer, Tony the Tyrant Rogers. Domo Brewer and Tony Rogers are actually matched up to fight August 24th at Fight Lab in Charlotte. And that's going to be a heck of a fight. Some guys that I like, Isaiah Monroe and Ace Hill, coming out of my gym, set to make their pro debuts this year as well. And a guy who's already made his pro debut earlier in the year, Taco Bryant Bullock, Taco. He's on a roll right now and potentially has some fight news coming out. So the freshman class of new pros is looking pretty darn awesome. Guys pretty much making their mark, turning things around for themselves in 2019, really getting it right. Okay, I'm Coach Sess, and you've had Words with the Mad Coach.